This video is of examples that I worked with on whiteboards with my first period class on February 1st. I will be trying to explain them as I go along, record the explanations. Sometimes it may just be equations and answers, but we'll see what we can do. Now, a number of you, when working on this, you were doing the grouping here. You group this, you group this. A number of you did find the common factor of 3x squared for that first set, which you would then divide both of these by 3x squared, which is going to give you 3x for the first term there, and a plus 4 for the second. Then you saw a common term of negative 5 for these two terms. And when you factor that out, you're going to be left, I'm going to divide both by negative 5. You're going to be left with 3x plus 4. Now, a number of you stopped at this point. This is not the completely factored polynomial. The whole part of the grouping was to be able to bring out this common binomial. See, they both have this 3x plus 4 here. If they both have that same binomial as a factor here, see, this is one term, this is another term, and both of those terms have that factor of 3x plus 4. I can now factor out that 3x plus 4 as a common factor. When I do that, I end up dividing, when I divide this term by it, this cancels out. When I divide, it cancels out from here. I'm left with 3x squared minus 5. So the GCF on this side becomes here, the GCF on this side goes here, and it forms your second binomial that gives you the completely factored quadratic there. Okay, this is the second example. It's another factor by grouping. If you want to pause the video and try and work along with us here, see if you get the right answer, it might be a good idea. Okay, let's take a look here. We've got this factor by grouping problem, so we're going to group the first two and the second two terms. Looking at the first two terms, I see a common factor of 5b squared, so I'll be dividing both of these by 5b squared, which is going to give me just plain b for that first term, and 5 for the second term, because the b squareds will cancel, and 25 divided by 5 is 5. All right, now looking at these two, I see a common factor of 6. So I'm going to pull out a positive 6, and that's going to leave me with a b plus 5 here. This is good because I see I've got my common binomials here. So I'm going to pull that out and make this b plus 5. Whoops, that's not a 5. B plus 5 and 5b squared, this term, plus 6, this term, and that gives me my final answer there. And if I FOIL to double check it, b times 5b squared gives me the 5b cubed. b times 6 is 6b, which is this term here. 5 times 5b squared will give me the 25b squared, and 5 times 6 will give me the 30. Good way to double check to see whether you got the final answer there. Again, don't stop when you get to this point here. This is not the final answer. You do have to factor out that common binomial to get to this point. Okay, this is another factor by grouping. I've warned my class, and you're going to warn too, that there is a GCF in this one, so you want to keep that in mind. Okay, as it turns out, the GCF is a 3. You factor out the 3 from all 4 terms, you end up with 12x cubed minus 8x minus 15x plus 10. Now, I temporarily ignore this 3, but I do have to bring it back into my final answer, so don't forget about it entirely. Looking at the first two terms, I find a common factor of 4x squared. Looking at the second two terms, I find a common factor of 5. And I also notice that if I want to make this if I want to make this binomial the same as this binomial, I know I'm going to have to pull out the negative because I'm going to want a negative 2 and a positive 3x. So I pulled out a negative 5 to give me the positive 3x minus 2 as the binomial here. These two became the second factor there. This common binomial became the first factor there. And we brought down our GCF. So this right here is our final completely factored quadratic. This one is not a factor by grouping, but it does have a coefficient on the x squared other than 1. So it does add in some extra work on that. For those of you that are having a little issue here, here's a list of the factors that might help you with that. Okay, so the correct answer here is going to be that 3x minus 4 and an x plus 6. To get that, we're going to work with this last set of factors here. You'll see that when you do 1 times negative 4, you're going to get negative 4. 3 times 6 gives you 18. You add those together, and you will get the positive 14x. To arrange those correctly, I have to make sure the 3 is going to multiply the 6 and the 1 is going to multiply the 4. And these are your x terms. So I put the 3x here and the 6 here so that when I do the outer, I'm going to get that 3x times the 6. I put the negative 4 here with the x here so that when I do the inner, I would get the negative 4. All right,